Ladies and gentlemen, the coronavirus looks like it's going to take over the world. We need to protect ourselves. The governments are not looking like they're really giving us real information, and that's not just the Chinese but the others as well, like the UK government, for example, is saying everything's in hand, everything's under control, everything's fine. It seems obvious to me that it's not really true, and it's quite likely that the virus will get out of control. It's looking like it's already out of control. It's looking like it's going to be impossible to contain it. They'll be able to stop it for a while. Maybe it'll be a month or two before it really takes off, but eventually it's likely, I think, to take over the world. So we need to make preparations now. What can we do to help ourselves? Well, quite apart from stockpiling food and that sort of thing, which may not be necessary in the end, there is gadgetry. And this particular gadget I will explain in a minute, because it's actually to do with the way the body deals with fevers. So this is a temperature probe device, usually used for things like fish tanks or gardening greenhouses. It's attached to a battery. That is 5 days worth of power for this, and it has a 120 decibel alarm. Now, why would this be helpful in the case of a fever? Why have I even rigged this up? It's because fever is not very well understood by the general population, I think. A fever is trying to kill the virus. Fevers are a response of the body to kill viruses. Not always, but a lot of the time. And so if you take Advil or ibuprofen, paracetamol, I can't remember the American name for paracetamol, but whatever it is, these various different painkillers, unfortunately, as well as making the flu more comfortable, they also lower your body temperature. And that's actually a bad thing, because you will extend the flu or make it worse, or in the longer term, you for example, with this coronavirus, there seems to be a second phase. You sort of slightly recover and then you get pneumonia. Now, pneumonia is liable to be worse for having given the virus more time and scope to take over your body and multiply in your lungs. So you actually want to keep the fever high, but there is a danger to that, which I'll come to in a second. In theory, if you have your body temperature high enough, you will not feel that chilled effect. You'll feel comfortable. You may still have body aches, but you'll feel comfortable. However, if your fever gets too high, you can be severely injured or even die. So you occasionally hear of people dying of multiple organ failure after things like, for example, the drug MDMA, ecstasy, I think it's ecstasy, which causes overheating in people who are using it. And then you get reports that they've died of multiple organ failure. But that's also true of fevers and heat stroke and so on and so forth. So we need to avoid that. And that's what this gadget is about. It's about keeping your fever high, but not too high. So I've got this rigged up. There'll be links below, Amazon affiliate links, to try and help fund this channel and help me do other projects and hopefully bring other help to everyone in this regard. So with this thing, it's a fish tank or garden greenhouse temperature monitor, and you can see there's the temperature probe, and I've rigged it up at the back with all the wires. I got the batteries off Amazon as well. I got this battery bracket, I think it came off Amazon. All the links will be below in any case. The alarm also came off Amazon. And the wiring means that I'll have a wiring guide for this quite soon as well. And basically what happens is that the configuration of this device with the buttons at the front, which I'll also provide, because it's a bit fiddly, unfortunately the instructions are not so great, means that when you put the probe up your armpit, you then leave it there attached with some medical tape, and then you'd be, for example, laid out in your bed suffering. But I'll be doing future videos on reducing the suffering, even if you can't take ordinary painkillers. and also if there's sore throat, vomiting. There are things you can do about that, but that'll be in future videos. So do subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you don't get notified if you just subscribe. And in future videos I'll be explaining about that sort of thing. So what happens is your temperature, if it goes too high, the alarm will go off. Now I know from having had bad flus in the past, and I'm expecting the corona flu to be really bad. Of course it may not be for me in my individual body chemistry and so on, but I'm supposing that it could be very bad, is that the alarm will go off. I'll be really in a bad way, so I'll be really tired, and the alarm is so loud. This is 120 decibels, it's unbelievably deafening. For a little light thing, I mean this thing weighs nothing, it is super loud, and it's running off these ordinary AA batteries. There's 10 of them. And I've got a cheap recharger as well, very solid, nice little cheap recharger. 5 days worth, which is about how long, so far as we've been told, the flu takes in its worst phase. So quite possibly by that time you'll have burned out the virus and it'll be dead. But in the meantime, if this goes off, then you know your body temperature is getting too high. So you can then check with a medical thermometer. I've got one of those. And then this will having woken up because of the extremely loud alarm, and then take maybe half a paracetamol. Now, maybe that's the wrong approach. I'm going to look into the right drugs and chemicals to help lower a body temperature without quashing it completely. I mean, even half a paracetamol may completely quash your temperature for an hour or 2 or 3. So there's got to be the right stuff out there for this purpose. Maybe it's just you need to cool down a bit. So rather than taking pills, you just simply take the bed covers off for a while and maybe even use a fan. But I'll address all of that in future videos. In the meantime, this is the first of the devices that I've made. You can see it's reporting the temperature here as 19 degrees centigrade, 18.9. It's not actually as good as the other one I've made, which I'll be describing in another video. This is, for example, only accurate to 1 degree. I've set this, in fact, to go off at, I think, 40.5 degrees, which is as close as I can get it to 40 degrees. I really wanted it at 40 degrees. 42.5 degrees is the sort of point at which you're doing irreversible damage to yourself. So 2.5 degrees off, that's pretty high. It's already a high fever. By 40 degrees, you're in a high fever. So I really wanted to have it at 40 degrees, and it's not quite accurate enough for that. The other device is not battery powered, but it is mains powered. However, it's very accurate, so I can actually set the temperature to precisely where I want it to go off. And I've got the wiring done for that as well, and the alarm. So in a future video, hopefully tomorrow, I will be describing that and what you need to set up with. This is still a very good idea. Let's say everything goes to pot. That's the reason I still have it here. Let's say everything goes to pot and there's no power. There's no power, and well, this thing is going to carry on working. This thing is going to wake you up when you need to wake up to lower your body temperature, even if there's no power. This device is pretty indispensable, really, because anything could happen. We don't know what's going to happen. A systemic meltdown. Do you remember talk of systemic meltdowns 10 years ago, 2008? Systemic meltdown is still a possibility, and a systemic meltdown is when the whole financial system in the whole world collapses. And that has been beckoning for some time. The governments have been worried about it. There's been warnings in the newspapers. If you look at the Daily Telegraph, for example, there's been articles about it in the last month or so, before the coronavirus came along. And so if there's a major recession, then it's quite likely to end up with being a systemic meltdown. Now, a systemic meltdown means there's no money flowing. What then? Is there going to be any food? Is there going to be any power? Well, at the very least, if you have got the coronavirus, you've got power with this thing. It will at least allow you to try and burn out that virus before it does you any damage. And it won't matter that there's no power. I mean, it will matter in other regards, but at least it won't matter insofar as the working of this thing. My other device, because it's mains powered, if the mains power goes off, then it goes off. Now, I am working on a solution for that. I'm going to use the same battery pack, because it's 12 volt internally as well. And then I'm going to try and wire up a diode to allow me to wire up this thing with my soldering iron and Haven't done that yet, and that could get complicated, so we'll see about that. But in any case, I've got a third one of these devices. The third one is also mains powered. That's the one I'm going to do some soldering to. So if you want to see that and the details of how that pans out and what to order if you want to do this for yourself, then do hit the subscribe button and most importantly hit the notification bell, otherwise you won't get notified of new videos, which should be coming out soon, like tomorrow. Also, don't forget that I have mentioned a few other things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the different drugs you could use, like anti-nausea drugs and where to get them. What's actually effective? Is it worth going to the pharmacy, or do you need to get a prescription? And if you get a prescription, well, do you need to be sick already? Or is the doctor going to give it to you? If the over-the-counter stuff is strong enough, then you don't need to get a prescription, but is it strong enough? What about ordering from, the dodgy websites out there that send you drugs, prescription drugs, for without going through a doctor, which is legal to receive, at least in some countries. In the UK, for example, I can receive a lot of different prescription drugs without going through a doctor by ordering online on these websites, which are located in other countries like India. And I have actually used them successfully in the past, and I have got the real, genuine article drugs. They were fine. They were in the proper manufacturing packages, and no dodginess, nothing fake about them at all, and the stuff worked. So, stay tuned.